Welcome to the 2024 Traveller Mayday Mayday event. I'm your host, Frank Succardi from CyborgPrime Games. I have with me today my guest, Mr. Christopher Griffen. Hi, Chris.
Hello, how you doing, Frank?
Doing very well. Hey, why don't you tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself?
I am Christopher Griffen, but you can call me Chris if you ever run into me in person. And I am a principal writer, or a premier writer of Traveller. I think that's the title, at Mongoose Publishing. And I am also a comic book writer now for Traveller, writing two titles for Makergod Publishing.
Two titles.
Yes.
Which ones?
So the first one that one issue has come out for is Traveller Far Trader. And the second comic that's coming out is called Traveller Riftbreaker. And that one you'll be seeing really soon because it's getting lettered right now. And that's kind of like the last thing that happens before proofs come out. And then I get to look at it, kind of go over it with the publisher, make sure everything looks right, and we put it out for publication. And Makergod gets things out the door in digital format months before they come out in hard copy. So you'll be seeing it soon.
Hey, cool. Let's talk about it in more detail a little bit later in the thing. I'd love to hear more about it. That's gonna be awesome. I just read Far Trader and I thought it was, and I'd like to talk more about that as well because it has some just iconic stuff in it, and I thought that was awesome too that you included it.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah. So hey, let's tell everybody how you got interested in RPGs. How did you first find out about them?
Well, like so many of us, it happened during adolescence for me a long time ago. I was introduced by friends to Dungeons and Dragons in the late 70s. It had to be, or maybe 1980. I don't know. It was way back there, way back in time. And I enjoyed it. I loved the concept of leveling, and your character gets better and better, and you go from zero to hero is sort of the philosophy of the game design, where first the best thing you can handle is a kobold, and then pretty soon you're taking on red dragons. So fantasy's cool. I was sort of into Lord of the Rings and a few other fantasy stories at the time, but I was always a space opera kid. I loved 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if you call it space opera, but Planet of the Apes. And then Star Wars came along, and then, copies like Battlestar Galactica and eventually in the Alien series, and all of that just overwhelmed me with joy. I love sci-fi and space opera. So shortly after my introductions to Dungeons and Dragons, I thought, it would be so cool if there were a sci-fi version of this. And then I have no idea, no recollection of how I found out about Traveller, but I think someone illegally photocopied some of it, and I saw a copy, and I thought, I want the real thing because I like the actual product instead of, I don't know if I cared about ripping off the GDW or not, but I needed the actual books. So I got my mom to take me to the local hobby shop, and sure enough, they had all kinds of Traveller books, including the little black box 3-book set. And so I got all those, and obviously the design's very different. It's not hero to zero, it's zero to zero. No, it's your character. It's, as I've heard it described,
in some cases, zero to casket.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes in original Traveller, you might not even make it to character. You could fail your survival roll. So it was more a story of what would you say? Sort of like average people taking on extraordinary circumstances. Your characters usually come out underwhelming, unless you have extreme luck of the dice, but that's not the point of Traveller. It's sort of like the story of average folks being heroes in space, and maybe not heroes, right? There's a lot of temptation to do bad
Right.
things.
You could have fame or infamy.
Yes, to pay mortgages and and to earn a fast credit, etc. So anyway, what I wanted was to imitate Star Wars, and it quickly became clear that it wasn't Star Wars, but that didn't matter. I was overwhelmed by the design of the game, the simplicity, and the fun of it. And I introduced it to my friends, and I was immediately refereeing the game, and we had a lot of fun with Classic Traveller. That's how I got into it, and I played a bunch of other games too from the era. A little bit of Champions, the superhero game.
Love Champions.
Star Frontiers, TSR's attempt to do sci-fi wasn't too bad. Gamma, what was it? Gamma World.
Gamma World. Love that
the
game.
Post-apocalyptic one. Yeah, that was fun.
I think that was my first sci-fi RPG. Actually, it was Gamma World.
Oh, was it? Yeah, that was a fun game, cool setting, and eventually Shadowrun and Deadlands in the in the 90s. Have you ever played Deadlands?
I haven't played Deadlands.
Super fun. Yeah, it's
somebody else was talking about it. It has a cool mechanic of playing cards and stuff, or
poker chips too.
Poker chips,
cards and poker chips. Yes, that's right. Deadlands is super fun, but always back to Traveller, and played multiple incarnations of the game. Mega Traveller, Traveller: The New Era. I bought but didn't play T4 or T20. Didn't play either of those, but then I just bought the books out of nostalgia. And then once I discovered Mongoose's version, the original, what they call it, Mongoose version 1, I thought they did a really nice job with this, and I started playing that for a while, and then dropped out again, came back, and Mongoose 2 was out, and started playing that.
Awesome. I have a similar path myself through those. I always stayed current. I mean, every edition, every new edition was my new favorite edition, and I just followed along and bought anything that I could that had the name Traveller on it. So
yes, I kept doing that as well.
So how'd you go from Traveller player to Traveller writer?
Well, when I started playing Mongoose version 2, I brought back a group of friends, brought some new people into the game as well over the internet. We made connections and decided to build a group. And then I was really organized, and I wrote some adventures to kind of guide them through a path. I had a vague idea of a story I wanted to tell. I saw that adventures were published in the Trojan Reach, and of course I knew I've always been a canon guy. I've always played almost always in the official Traveller universe, so I knew about the Trojan Reach. I don't think I'd ever run anything there. They only had one adventure, I think, there, Leviathan in Classic Trav, and I don't think I ran it. I had the book, just never ran it. But I saw that Mongoose 2 developed it, and I thought, okay, I'll just use their setting, and started a little adventure there. And because I kind of have a background as a writer, I'm a technical writer by it's my profession, working for a tech company. I thought I can organize this stuff and write something good, and it would be fun to make a little money off of it. So I found out about their Traveller's Aid Society, the task program that Mongoose had, where as long as you can get they give you some graphics and say, go ahead, go publish stuff for Traveller, and we'll take 50% or whatever it is, and you get the other half. And so I wrote a couple of adventures and published them. They did well, and then I really kind of threw a lot of effort into the third thing I wrote, which was Makergod. And that one was really well received, and it was like #1 for a long time on their TAS offerings. So I had the audacity to go to Matt. I contacted Matt Sprange, and I said, Matt, my adventure's doing great. You should hire me. And he said, and I thought he might say, "My, you're an arrogant one. Go away." But no, he said, he goes, okay, it is doing well. So let's take a look at what you got. Why don't you, and what I did say is, I want to write one of your books. I saw that they had pitched in one of their annual announcements a book that was to come out from them was the Glorious Empire. And I really liked that little area of the Trojan Reach. So I said, I would like to write that book for you. And Matt said, well, how about you write a couple of adventures first? And then so he had me write a series of adventures. I wrote a Trojan Reach adventure called Exodus. And then I wrote a couple naval adventures for them because they had just put out the Element Cruiser box set and they needed naval adventures. And so I wrote 2 of those. And then Matt said, all right, those were pretty good. Go write Glorious Empire. And I did. And that's kind of how I got my start.
Awesome. Now, Glorious Empire was like a huge source book. It's
yes.
like 100.
Just
it's
got
over
made into
160.
an audiobook, by the way. I don't know if you saw, there was a Kickstarter for it, and it got converted into an audiobook. Which
no, I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. It's like a 160-page book of the Glorious Empire. Do you want to tell us who the Glorious Empire is and what that's about?
Yeah. So if you're familiar with the classic setting and you know the Trojan Reach, you know that it's probably half or more than half occupied by the Aslan, the one of the alien species, the canonical alien species of Traveller, and they are expansionists, and they have their society is guided by honor and by sort of a clan arrangement. They're a group of competing clans, thousands of clans. There are 29 major clans called the Tlau-Ku, which kind of have more influence than everyone else, but technically it's just sort of a federation of clan-controlled star systems. And for the most part, they're pretty uniform. They had a historical event, sort of a historical purge when matriculation into space eventually caused people to start getting ideas and doing things differently than the traditional system of honor called Fter that they had, that more or less dominated their species and their culture. And so they reined these people in, but it was difficult to rein in the ones that crossed the Great Rift. So the Aslan mostly inhabited an area called the Aslan Hierate. They crossed a jump 5 route into the Trojan Reach, and it's an area bereft of stars for the most part. It's not easy to cross, right? It's like Magellan crossing the Pacific Ocean in the 1500s. Is that right? I hope I have the years right. And it's a difficult thing to do, and they did it. And so it was sort of difficult to rein everyone in culturally because they're far away from the cultural center of the species. But for the most part, they're more or less still Aslan. They're expansionists. They have clans, but one group developed a society based on slavery. And most of the Aslan consider slavery dishonorable, but the Glorious Empire formed a subculture that was run by slaves, and mostly human slaves that they captured, other species as well, presumably. And over the years, it's always been sort of a blight on their resume. The Aslan are ashamed of the Glorious Empire, but they weren't easy to extricate. But at this point in the current setting of the year 1105, the Glorious Empire is falling apart. It's finally gotten to the point where it looks like it's going to collapse. So it's a really volatile region of the Trojan Reach, and it involves, a hated subculture of the Aslan. The Aslan hate them, humans hate them. They run around capturing slaves all the time. They're a pretty wicked group. And so I think it's an exciting location for a campaign because you could play a number of roles in this collapse of an alien society. You could be someone who is a slave and you've escaped and and maybe you're a freedom fighter. You could be an Aslan who is a member of a clan invading the Glorious Empire and trying to claim its worlds for yourself. You could be an Aslan of the Glorious Empire, but that gets a little tricky because I'm not a big advocate of playing a slave owner, but maybe you could, the book encourages you to play someone who's kind of recognizes the winds of change and says, I'm going to be part of the change. I'm not going to be a slaver.
They're like a abolitionist subculture.
Yeah, you could say something like that, which would be very forbidden in their society. Um, but you know, that's where excitement is in when there's conflict, right? And the opportunity for adventure. So the idea is that this area of space can change rapidly, and you could be a part of it. And whatever it morphs into, you could be associated with that.
Right.
And
you could buy slaves and free them.
You could, yes, that could be something too. You could be engaging in trade and using your profits to free slaves.
Yeah.
The other thing is the Glorious Empire are notorious for their mercenaries. They've kind of branched out into human space. They have got really highly efficient mercenary organizations, and those guys are probably a little more. They've seen what's outside their society, and they probably, some of them could get a sense of, hey, this is, you know, what we have back home is not going to last forever. Maybe it's time for us to use our abilities to do something else and to form, you know, our run our operation out here. And there's, you know, we've got a mercenary box set that you could probably incorporate with an Aslan Glorious Empire mercenary campaign or something like that. So there's a lot of possibilities. Really, there are far more possibilities than I've named there, but to me, it's an exciting region of space. I have not yet run a campaign there. I'm still running Pirates of Dranax.
And you will be for the next 20 years.
It sure feels like it. No, we're getting close.
Okay.
We are getting close to the conclusion, and they've done it really unorthodox too, because they didn't want to do piracy. So it's like, you wimps, come on, just do it traditionally. But you know, I got to let the players do what they want. So anyway, I would love to run a Glorious Empire campaign someday, because I think it has such rich potential.
Awesome. Do you get to test out your ideas very often? Do you have a group of volunteers who
people to volunteer?
Yes. Do you have? Can you volunteer people to help you?
Yes, I do have a group who will be who are available for that, and I will be utilizing them in the near future, because I'm writing a big campaign for Mongoose right now. And it's in 3 acts, and I'm getting close to the conclusion of the first act, and I'm gonna run it before I write the other 2.
Cool. How do you process feedback that you get back from the community that you might not agree with?
Yeah, I've gotten better at that. At first, you know, writing for Traveller has been my first major exposure to the public feedback, and generally the feedback has been pretty good. Sometimes there are critiques, and it doesn't really rankle me. So I pay attention to what they're saying. I also pay attention to the fact that it's the internet, and people like to just spout off sometimes and say things. Being negative is sometimes more fun than being positive, and you never have to look the author in the eye, so you can say mean things, and there are probably no consequences for your actions. But most people are nice. They gauge their critiques, and they say the things they like or the things they don't like, and I pay attention, because I would like to write material that people enjoy. So I take it seriously, and I don't get offended.
All right, good.
Anymore. Yeah, I'm hardened. I've got a thick outer shell now.
Mm-hmm. So, what have you been up to since last time we met? Been doing a lot of projects, I bet.
Yeah, it's really 2 things for me right now. I would like it to be more, but some real life has intervened and made me less productive than I would like to be. But that'll change soon, and I will be more prolific in my Traveller work. But right now, it's just the big campaign, which is called Singularity, and the comic book, the 2 comics, and that keeps me pretty busy running those 2 things. I really want to finish Singularity, and part of it is because I'm really excited to have it in people's hands. It's been a difficult year for me to get a lot done. I think I'm going to be a lot more productive the rest of this year. So I'll get it out pretty soon. And because Matt's got another campaign lined up for me, and I can't talk about it yet, but the concept is cool. And it's right down my alley because I enjoy military science fiction, but I really like non-military science fiction. I like stories where the characters try to solve problems without shooting each other first. And two reasons for that. One, it just fascinates me more than every, violence and explosions all the time. That way, when there are violence and explosions, it actually means something to me rather than, oh, cool, we're blowing something up again. It means nothing to me. I see it all the time. I like it to be dramatic and unusual. And the other reason is in Traveller, combat is deadly. It will kill your characters. And so I think you really have to pace yourself when you include combat in a game. Unless you just give your players battle dress right off the bat and they can just wipe everyone else out.
Mm-hmm.
But then
battle dress and an auto dock.
Yeah, battle dress and an auto dock. and a what do they call it? A stagger laser rifle and a fusion gun. Then you're going to be good. But it's not that fun when you
okay, adventure's over.
Yeah, we won. That's it. It's over.
You vaporized the facility from orbit. Game over. Yeah, we just got here.
Although I should probably, say that players do enjoy that to a point. They just like to win.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the best thing you can do as a referee is run a story where they could face mortality, but where they probably are going to be okay.
I think people like the thrill. They like the threat of their character dying, but nobody likes their character to die and have to roll up anyone.
You've said it better than I have.
Yeah,
that's right. They like the threat of it. They don't like it to actually happen.
Right. And thankfully, you do have auto docs and things that can bring people back to life, or at least put them in suspended animation, and then you have an adventure like trying to retrieve their brain from the alien computer center or whatever,
Yeah, or T5 has some things in it that includes digitizing your mind, so you could have like a shelved, which is a big thing in sci-fi.
Right. Yeah, I include that in mine, even in my Traveller game, even though I'm just playing Mongoose. So I have memory editing, stuff like that. Yeah,
so they have backups of their mind, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you could restore your character in a clone body or something like that. You don't ever truly have to die, and that's been explored in sci-fi for quite a long time now.
Right. And it can also give you cool like plot MacGuffins, like the enemy is trying to sift through your mind to get information from you, or from your backup or whatever, or using a machine, they're like, tell me more about where you hid the pile of credits, or I don't know, but
yeah, they interrogate your backed up brain rather than the actual person, and then when you get that brain, you could tell the other players or the other characters in your group, I gave up some information. Sorry about that, but they got to me.
Right.
In cyberspace.
Right. In the brainatron.
In the brainatron,
yes. I think last year, Third Imperium had just come out. How did that do?
Imperium came out a few years ago. Last year,
was it? Okay.
Yeah, and that's my favorite book that I've written. I love that book. I love looking at it again. I love writing adventures there in the core, and the core is where the majority of Singularity happens as well. So it'll heavily familiar. If you run Singularity, you will become intimately familiar with core sector, where Capital is, and the Emperor, and all the excitement therein.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking at your list of adventures. I see the core adventures 1, 2, and 3. I see the High Guard update. That looks pretty awesome. These are all all the books that you've been involved with are 4 or 5-star rated books. So congrats to you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't realize that. But that's great news. I'm happy to hear that.
You worked on Boo and Embla's Guide to the Starports?
Yes, Bella started that. Bella's one of the editor writers at Mongoose, and then she's got a lot of projects, so she handed it off to me, and I wrote. I guess you'd have to say most of that book, but the characters are hers. I believe they're actual characters run by Bella and possibly Cassie at the office. They're Boo and Embla are actual Traveller characters. But yeah, that book was a lot of fun to write, and it was pretty well received because it's different. It writes it from their perspective. They visit these worlds in the Spinward Marches, and it details the worlds and their starports. And it adds in some ships and animal encounters, some cuisine encounters.
I had an encounter with Starport sushi.
with a space burger or something like that. It's got some fun stuff in it.
Looks pretty interesting. Where do the ideas for all these things come from? Are they generated by Matt, or do the individual authors like have an idea and pitch them?
I think Boo and Embla was pitched by members of the staff. Initially, how do these things? Sometimes they're usually Matt's very much involved though in the process. When I started Singularity, he came at us and he said, "What's the next big campaign?" And I suggested the basis of Singularity and with a fair amount of detail. And then I don't know what Martin suggested, but Martin has written like three campaigns since then. So he certainly continues to be a fount of ideas. Gear has been writing more mechanical books. And they've got some other authors writing some new sector books, like they've got The Deep and the Dark, came out recently. But usually Matt's usually involved. He kind of knows what he wants to see, but then he opens it up and lets you pitch what you want to do.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, unless he's got something specific, like someone needs to do Highguard 2022, and I initially wanted to write just part of it, and then I ended up doing the whole thing, and it was a challenge.
I bet a lot of people had opinions about that book.
It has been better received than I expected, because we changed some things pretty heavily, including because I got to thinking what kind of stories do we want to tell with capital ship combat, which is a major part of Highguard, right? You get space combat in the core rulebook, and then there are a lot of capital ship designs, traditional ones, like the Tigris, the Plankwell, these big battleships, and so I redid all of those. We changed the design strategy, because you really couldn't very easily run combat with the space combat system with the capital ships. It wouldn't really it ended up being like what capital ships could really only be window dressing. But now you can run capital ship combat, and there's a fleet combat section as well, which which should run pretty well as well if you want to run a big conflict between groups of squadrons of capital ships. But yeah, you can face off a Tigris versus its opposing ship in the Jordani fleet, and I think you'll get a result that is pleasing and destructive. They will wipe each other out fast.
How did you was it difficult to get a balance, like, between those two things, or did you just say, like, okay, this needs to have a
It was difficult, but I had a group of people working with me, and I got some great suggestions that helped push the thing along the way. And the main one came from a guy you know, Jeremy Rector. He came up with the damage multiples idea, and then we bounced that back and forth until it worked pretty well, and then we tested it, and it worked. I'm happy with the results. It's different from Traveller, but it kind of leaves, because of the kinds of weapons that are on small ships, generally speaking, it leaves their combat intact. It'll still look the same. Unless you have a barbette, because we made barbettes super destructive, powerful compared with what they were. They have a damage multiple. So, and the unfortunate / fortunate thing is that Pirates of Janax features a ship with a particle barbette. And it's a big deal that your character's ship has a particle barbette, and it was already destructive because it does radiation damage and stuff like that. But now it will probably one shot a 200-ton free trader with the power that we gave it.
Wow!
So maybe it's more of a deterrent in a modern. If you use the mechanics in Highguard, maybe it's like you go up to pirate the ship and you go, by the way, we have a particle barbette. You probably just want to let us board.
I think we should scan our ship and look at the weapons complement before you give us permission to come aboard. Yes. Very cool.
So yeah, the Bay weapons are Bay weapons didn't scale well. I believe we made them scale well. Like it never made sense to use medium and large bays for anything but the missile versions. Now it makes sense. Each level of, so you've got small, medium, large bays, and then you move to spinal mounts, and each one destroys a different level of ship, if you want to put it that way. A small bay can wipe out can do a lot of damage to a destroyer. A medium bay probably one shots a destroyer. A large bay almost certainly does. And then you've got cruisers, right? And then carriers, and then you start getting to your dreadnoughts of various sizes.
I see.
Once you get to dreadnoughts, bay weapons are just like turrets to them, but the spinal mounts will wreck each other really fast. So it looks like something out of I don't know if you used to watch Japanese animation like
Star Blazers or or Macross Robotech.
Yes,
like the Zentradi ships.
The big ships wiping each other out with like mushroom explosions happening all over the place on them. I won't say that was the inspiration, but I have watched clips of those since, and I just think that looks like Traveller capital ship combat looks now.
Yeah, awesome. The pitched battles back and forth are just so much more dramatic and compelling than one shots. I mean, when a one shot happens, it I guess if you're outclassed, but I mean, like one shotting a ship of similar size and disposition shouldn't really happen except under like miracle conditions. And generally speaking, one shots aren't happening, but with the big ships, they are a threat, right? The dreadnoughts that have large bays and meson or particle spinal mounts, they're gonna absolutely wreck smaller ships. Right.
And I wanted combat to be faster and tell that story of this massive destruction on a quick scale, because generally speaking, this is not a war game, it's a role-playing game.
Right.
If you're going to take it aside to run a capital ship scenario, I think you want to get through it in half a session to a session so that you can get back to the role-playing game. Or you set aside some time to run it with the players in your group that care. I mean, a lot of people are just into the role-playing aspect of it. If you had a naval campaign or something where you wanted to resolve a fleet combat scenario, you might want to set aside time separate from your normal gaming session. If you want to make it part of it, I think it needs to run quickly and efficiently so we can get back to the story.
That's good of you to take those considerations. I was talking to somebody the other day, and like back in the day, we used to play Robotech. Battletech, sorry, and battle bots, battle droids, Battletech. Anyway, you'd have these, and also Starfleet battles, and you'd have these record sheets with like 1 million bubbles to fill in, especially on Starfleet battles. And man, the games would take a minimum of 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours sometimes. and that's with just running one robot apiece. So yeah, it could really, or one ship in the case of Starfleet battles. So yeah, that could eat up a whole session or even two. So
Yeah.
making it more streamlined, I think is something that gaming groups would appreciate. It's funny now that I play I play MechWarrior online, and our 4-hour games really actually in real time took like 7 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. We in my Pirates of Dranax campaign, some of the things that unfolded, I don't want to spoil in case people are just getting started with that. So I'll say that there is a scenario in the game in which you run a heist on a treasure ship, and there is a pirate lord involved in it. In our story, the pirate lord was never he survives the original encounter, and he becomes vengeful, and he finds out about Dranax, and he wants to go and destroy Dranax. So we ran a scenario using some of the rules in Highguard 2022 with a conflict of like, it must have been about 20 to 30 ships in the conflict. And it took a couple of sessions. And some players are into it and some not so much. But it was a great way to test damage multiples and other things to see how things worked.
Right.
And it was fun.
Yeah.
Fun for me. I enjoyed it. And it included, I happen to have the if you've bought the Traveller Companion, there's a new version of the Traveller Companion, and it includes a section on vector-based combat. And one of the players in my group invented that chapter, and I said, you should write this up and publish it in the new companion, and he did so. And it's I think it works very well, and it was super fun to run in our session.
Awesome. Yeah, my big appeal to that is the I like building ships, all kinds of ships, making ships, and also fighting them. Just because Starfleet battles is in my blood. That's something that also attracts me to the Ad Astra systems. Very Starfleet battles ish, but and modernized and computerized.
Have you played it, Ad Astras?
Yeah, I did. It's pretty awesome.
It's amazing, but it moves slowly.
Yeah,
because there's so much detail.
Yeah, I was just talking to them yesterday, and they were talking about how they've gone through and optimized some things. So now there's less steps.
I see.
Mm-hmm. I see. And if you're somebody who's played MechWarrior or Starfleet battles, you're used to going through this phase, that phase. Allocate your energy, put your shields up, that kind of stuff. So it's not that big of a deal.
Is one of the inspirations for our vector-based system that we put in the companion. So
they got a cool system. What's what's the best weapon in the Highguard? What's the best weapon to put on my ship?
How big is your ship?
Okay, for like a small, I just have a free trader. Missiles or lasers?
Yeah, well, we did add some different turret weapons that weren't there before, like what do you call them? Sort of like Gauss-inspired weapons. They were projectiles.
Oh, projectiles. Okay, cool.
Yeah, the name slips my mind, but yeah, we added some more, and we added some other. Let's see, we keep the same missiles. Yeah, pretty much the same missiles. I don't know. For small ships, it really hasn't changed. It's get yourself some triple pulse lasers and a power plant that can support it, and do your worst. But you can also use fusion guns and plasma guns as well.
Cool.
If you have a bigger ship, of course, we get to particle and meson guns. Particle spinal mounts are great against large ships with little armor, but they start to become very ineffective as you pack on the armor. And that's another rule we changed. We made it possible for large military ships to pack on the armor so that they can withstand a longer battle. And then, of course, meson weapons are the most destructive. They're super powerful.
Right, they skip the armor and like explode inside your ship.
Yeah, the only thing that hinders them are mace on screens, and if you can dodge, your evasion roll is really important at that point.
Awesome. So tell me about the your foray into comics. What prompted that?
So Matt came out of the blue and asked me, Martin, and Gear, any you guys interested in writing comic books? And I jumped at it because I love comics. I've been reading comics since I was 6 years old, and I had made an attempt to get into the comic industry as a back about, I don't know, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I worked with an artist, and we got sort of partway through it, and it didn't really work out. We had some creative disagreements. So another shot at it, heck yeah, I was all over it. And I jumped at it and first I wanted to create sort of the quintessential Traveller story in some regards. It's the crew of a far trader, so it's called Traveller Far Trader. And if you've read the comic, the first issue of it that's out, you were introduced to them. And the second issue is just about ready for publication. The artist was Xavier, and he took a while. It took him a long time to do the work because he has a lot of other work, and he does everything. He does the layouts, he does the color, he does the whole artistic process. So it took many months for him to finish the second issue, but we've switched to a new artist. Matt and Harry Marcos, who runs Marcosia Publishing, got us in touch with a studio based in Italy that's got, as far as I know, 2 creative teams, and we've enlisted both of them to write our Traveller comics. So a new artist starts with issue 3, and then there will be an issue 4 of Far Trader as well. And the series are blocked in groups of 4. So it ends after 4 issues, the story ends, and then ostensibly it will restart with a second Far Trader series that occurs after the events of the first one. And so issue 2 is about to come out. Issue 3 is pretty much done. So amazing. We could Harry could put out, or Marcosia could put out 2 comics right on each other's tails if he wants. And 4 is in development. And then I suggested a second series called Traveller Riftbreaker, which is quite different. So my approach to these comics is that I start with the starship because I feel like that's one of the iconic aspects of Traveller. And the first series, Traveller Far Trader, is obviously based on the adventures of the crew of a far trader. Riftbreaker is based on the crew of a scout ship, a Type S scout ship. And it's got, the characters are very different. They're sort of, they're a mishmash of people who've come together to adventure together. But it starts with the protagonist, the main protagonist, a guy named Revo Sanderson, and he was an X-boat astrogator. And so he knows what it's like to be alone for long periods of time, which is, one of the themes of the Scouts, right? If you have a Type S scout ship, you can run it by yourself if necessary, but it works better when you have a crew.
Right.
So anyway, he comes up. I don't want to spoil the story. I want you to read it. I think it's really different and interesting, and it's got some aspects that are a little controversial in a way. It deals with some human issues that are real and things that this character goes through. It's psychologically difficult to be in isolation all the time, and in our current world, I think a lot of people are actually dealing with that. Loneliness is an epidemic in modern society. And so I kind of use that as a metaphor for something that he's going through, and then uniting with some friends after he musters out and obtains his detached duty scout ship is kind of therapy for this character. And we find out that really all of the characters are sort of damaged in one way or another by their experiences in life, but coming together as a group of adventurers kind of gives them purpose. And what he suggests is, let's take our scout ship and let's cross the Great Rift with it. And they're like, you realize it has jump 2, right?
Yes, it's a rift.
And it's a rift.
Look at it, it's a rift.
And so I'm not going to tell you what happens next, but he finds a way that it's plausible to cross the Great Rift in a jump 2 starship. And that's a big part of the story. And I wanted to also kind of tie these stories in with things that Mongoose is doing, right? So Far Trader happens in the Spinbird Marches, which is, of course, the primary setting of Traveller for all these many decades. And it deals with issues of being a trader. And you read the comic. I sneak in all kinds of little Easter eggs for Traveller fans to enjoy.
Yeah, I liked it. It's like everyone to the grav car, everyone to the air raft.
Yes, yeah, and it looks just like a typical air raft, and the characters talk about things that are bothersome, that they have to deal with. You see airlocks, you see cargo holds. I found what I think is a creative way to show what a stateroom has in issue number 3 of Far Trader. You see the bridge a lot. It was interesting because the team that's doing Riftbreaker is a different art team. The artist who's doing the penciling, so he does the layouts and penciling, is Luigi Iannelli, and I love his stuff. It looks like it's just such a European style, and it reminds me of comics I've seen from French and British publishers in the past.
It's like Tintin in space, or
kind of, yeah. He's got sort of a sketchy style. He's got humor. He's got facial expressions. He's really good at that. So I'm excited about it. And the artist who's doing Far Trader now is Andrea Corsi, and his style is quite different. It's super clean line. He does starships and vehicles like they're just so sharp. So his style is very different, but also a great artist. I like the art teams, and there are inkers and colorists on each series as well. But anyway, so Riftbreaker tells that story where you're gonna this crazy group of characters decides to cross the Great Rift. And every time when I write these comics, I'm always trying to imagine these guys as Traveller characters that someone could be controlling, right? That's their character. And
do you actually have like a character rolled up for them on the in your portfolio or whatever?
I didn't roll them up, but I do. In Far Trader, in the 4th issue, you will receive the character stats and the stats for their ship in the final issue. That's one thing about each of the comics. Harry Marcos of Marcosia wanted back matter. So there's 6 to 8 pages of back matter, like that is stuff referees could use in a campaign. So it makes the comic more appealing. If you only partially like comics, but you like Traveller stuff, it's got information that you won't find anywhere else. It's got that you can use in your game. And so those are little sections that are more or less like part of a Mongoose Traveller book are in the back of each comic. And the 4th issue of Far Trader has the character stats and their ship, and the same deal. Let's see. I think it's the same deal for Riftbreaker. I can't remember if I allotted that to the 4th issue of the first series. And in any case, we have a contract with Marcosia to create, I think, 12 total comics, and I'm hoping it does great because I want to write more. I could write 100 issues of Riftbreaker. I love the characters. I love the idea of being adventurers and explorers, and I think there's a lot of excitement in it. And hopefully our contract gets extended and we keep on producing these things.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. How do you get, where do you find inspiration? How do you remain so prolific?
Probably vastly derivative of the 57 to 75 different narratives I've read or watched. I'm not going to claim to have original ideas, so that's definitely not the case. But I mean,
do you have a muse? Do you have a I like to sit by this pond and listen to the water, or I like to go outside or people watch or something, and then I get ideas. Or
I got a couple of muses that looking through Traveller game books provides a lot of inspiration. Deck plans is a big inspiration. If you start from a starship and you want to tell the story of being there. Part of the excitement in Traveller is there should be excitement on the ship, and the comics bring life to those deck plans. In fact, it was funny because Luigi came to me. He's wasn't familiar with Traveller when he started drawing for it, and he says, "What does the inside of the ship look like?" And I thought, well, of course it's everywhere in all kinds of Traveller books, and so it'll be easy to find what he wants. And I started looking, and really, there's not a lot of visual reference other than the deck plans, which are pretty basic.
There's some room elevations, I guess, back in the Starship Operator's Manual, right? Or
yes,
yeah.
Yes. I referred him to things there, and he found on his own the what's it called? Do you remember the publisher of the 3D printing scout ship? Dynasty, Third Dynasty, or
Third
Second
Dynasty. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, did you build one of those?
No, but one of my players sent me one as a gift.
Oh, wow.
Not a giant one, but it's like 6 inches long or something. It's
okay.
But it's pretty awesome.
Yes, it's really cool. So he found there's like a video walkthrough and used that as part of his inspiration. So I said, really, Luigi, you're going to invent what the interior of a scout ship looks like, because there's a lot of scenes in the bridge, scenes walking in the hallway. The second issue deals with some crazy stuff happening on the ship that touches. If you look at your deck plans in Highguard 2022 or one of the other books that has the scout ship, you're going to see every one of those rooms explored over the course of Riftbreaker, because in the interior of the ship and events that go on in there are important to the story. And I won't say more than that, but
it's claustrophobic.
It is.
It's super
tight. There's not even a common.
Yeah.
So there's not even a common area in the scout ship. So if you want to hang out, you got to do it in the workshop or the cargo hold or engineering or the bridge, and all of them are tight. Yep.
I wanted to see like what it was like, so I built like a virtual scout ship in 3D, and man, it's tight. It's like very claustrophobic. Only enough room for like 1.5 people to go down the hallway.
It is very tight, and that's explored in the story as well. So looking forward to people seeing it, and I hope people's reaction to it are as strong as mine. I'm really enjoying telling Riftbreaker, because it just feels to me like a group of Traveller characters making mistakes and doing dumb things and then trying to recover from them. This is not a group of characters that rolled a bunch of 12s on their characteristics. It's like an average group of characters that are taking on challenges that are bigger than they are.
That's something that I learned from the hero system, from playing Champions, about characters is, the flawed ones are more interesting. A superhero who, for instance, has a little old granny that he has to take care of, or whatever it is, an alien egg that he has to protect, or like, I don't know. Yeah, but all these weird quirks, and it's much more fun because at first you're like, well, my superhero just kicks everybody's ass, but having a code against killing, or like you never lie, or like things like that, really just add a whole other dimension. When you create characters for these things, do you look for flaws like that and try to explain how the character came into those flaws, or do you kind of go the other way around and go, well, this guy is a scout and he probably has bouts of depression or whatever?
For Riftbreaker, I've got a plan for that. If we get extended, then each subsequent series, the first one kind of gets them to a key cliffhanger. And so if we don't get renewed on this, you're going to see the end of Riftbreaker. It's a cliffhanger that you're going to want. It's a cliffhanger. You want to see what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
But the subsequent series will kind of dive into the backstories of the main characters and kind of describe how they're motivated. And each backstory will factor into the story being told in that subsequent series. the way these series are being designed by Marcosia is they're 4-issue series, and then they'll combine them into a graphic novel. So you can get the cool prestige format 1-by-1 issues, and then after there'll be a graphic novel that has some different things that you can enjoy. And each one will, as the story advances, delve more deeply into these characters. I really want to see them develop. So like, if you play Mongoose Traveller, you know that you can have events or mishaps in the terms that you serve. And those events and mishaps shape your personality. And people don't like a mishap because it derails the path that you want to see, but usually they really add to your personality. Something happens and it ruins your career and it gives your character motivation. Well,
Right.
all these
But
guys,
it usually gives you something in exchange.
yeah, it gives you something to work with that's interesting. And
Like
I mean,
it'll say, you cheated at school and you're getting
right.
kicked out, but you get like, a rival or whatever, or you get
Yeah,
something, it's not,
it gives,
you don't
right.
always feel like you just got kicked in the stomach. You get a little
Yes.
booby prize or like consolation prize.
Yeah, you do if you look at it glasses half full.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, cool. So what other projects are you working on that's coming up between now and next Mayday? Is it primarily the comics?
Well, yeah, you won't see Singularity yet. I've delivered the first book of Singularity. The second book, because the first book is the source book for Singularity. Matt has that one, and he seems to have enjoyed it. It was very gratifying. And then he'll have the second book, which is Act 1 soon, and then Act 2 is where things go wild, and you're going to see Traveller taken to a whole other level in Act 2. And that one I hope to write a lot faster than I've written Act 1. And then Act 3 brings it all to a head. So it's a 3-act campaign, and it should tap out to be about as much content, maybe a little more than Pirates of Drenax.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and much of it occurs in core sector, but it starts branching out in a rather unusual way in the second book, or the second act of the campaign. The first act of the campaign is called Silean Dream, and it starts where you're the crew of a subsidized liner, a very important subsidized liner. Act 2 is called Renegade Minds. That's MINDS, Renegade Minds, and it has a lot to do with artificial intelligence, consciousness. It explores some philosophical and other interesting science fiction aspects in the form of Traveller. And I'm trying to do it in a way that people will like it and enjoy and still feel the same thrill of playing their character that they do in other games. But this one changes things a bit for you because your mind becomes how can I hint?
Don't say it.
I won't. We'll keep it that way. I almost uttered the first syllable. I won't say anything. It's different. And then the third act is called the Glass Council, and that should just be mysterious in itself, right?
Right, right.
And concludes the campaign. And then this we're shaping this up to be a Kickstarter this year. So it's going to have a bunch of add-ons. For example, a really cool ship that you can add into the story, super detailed descriptions of starports and worlds, and a big factor in this campaign. Another hint that I'll drop is the X-Boat system. The X-Boat system is sort of the linchpin upon which this campaign is built. And so there's some add-ons that you can get if everyone bids up the Kickstarter high enough, that will describe in detail aspects of the Expo system that you didn't know about before.
Oh, cool. The
Yeah.
looks like the Kickstarters have all been pretty successful so far.
Yeah, I hope this one is too, because we've got big plans for it. And then it'll have all the other extras as well, like a set of dice. And there's, the dice will have, what is it, like for the number 1 or the number 6, it'll have a character on it. And that character, I can't say who it is, but it's a major factor of the campaign, and it'll be like an icon of that thing. And then there will be other things that go along with it too, like cards with tech on it or something, or
cool.
pencils and pens, all the stuff that they offer in things like the Mercenary set, and the Great Rift set, extras that are similar to those sets.
Also, like promotional swag or whatever.
Yeah, if you have them, they're like rewards if people bid up the project high enough.
Gotcha.
They'll unlock them as we get higher and higher in the support for the Kickstarter campaign.
Are they reprinting Makergod?
Yes, thanks for mentioning that. I forgot about that. That's out now. It's actually out in hard copy. So I've gotten a lot of great feedback on Makergod over the years. So finally, I approached Matt and I said, "How about if we make this thing canon?" And the way we do that is by you publishing it instead of it being a TAS adventure. So I rewrote it some, because when I wrote Makergod, I didn't write it exactly in the Mongoose style. It was a little more tongue in cheek and a lot more exclamation marks and silliness. And I dialed it back a little bit and made it more into their style. And what I was really excited about was seeing the art. I love Traveller's artists. I love Matt's stable of artists he works with. And he took it, and now it's got really good art. And they redid the ship, the ship that's in it. I love the ship that I have in Makergod. It's a raider ship for the Omen Raiders, and it's a tech level 9 but jump capable ship. It's like, to me, it's a great starter ship. Like, you could almost run a campaign in the Trojan Reach, and if your players didn't get a scout ship, what if they happened into one of these things? It's tech level 9, so it's so basic and kind of limited by its technology, but it's fun. It's called the Threshing Ore class raider, and a new art for it, and
it looks like Space Vikings in the Space Meat Hall.
Yes, that's right. It's got a lot of that going on, and there are references to a certain Led Zeppelin song throughout that adventure that only a couple people have noticed, or at least a couple people that I've seen have announced that they know the in joke that I'm making.
Found the Easter egg.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm excited about that as well. Yeah, that's out now. It was super fun to see it get redeveloped by Mongoose.
It's awesome. What else you got going? Anything else? Did I miss anything or skip anything? Or
I wish I could talk about the next campaign, but now we're gonna have to wait on that one.
Okay.
I'll tell you this: it's set in yet another very popular area of the charted space setting, and it will. What can I say? It will change the trader campaign. That's the hint I'll drop for you.
Okay.
It will take the idea of interstellar trade and make it super fun and interesting and different.
Awesome. So do you have socials or something people can follow you on, or do you just post mostly on the Mongoose stuff, or?
Yeah, I'm on what's Threads. I do have a presence there at Threads, which is what Facebook's, or what is it, Meta's thing. And I'm at let's see, what's my ID on there? You can find me just by searching up Christopher Griffen. My EN, and my Griffen is spelled with an EN, so hopefully there's just one of me. It identifies me as a tabletop game designer and graphic novel writer. I announce a lot of my projects there, although I haven't really developed it properly. But hopefully I will. Hopefully you'll help me, Frank.
Yeah, get yourself an author page. That's my advice for this year.
Yeah, so I I promote the comic there. I I put some of previews of the comic book on my Threads site, and so that's a good place to find me. But other than that, I don't really have a really strong social media presence.
Weird. Just kidding.
Well, it takes a lot of time.
It does. It does. I spend a portion of every day like interacting with the community on all the socials, and it does take a chunk of time to kind of keep a community cultivated and not feeling neglected.
I know people who do it and are internet personalities, and it is hard work.
Definitely. So where can people primarily find your work? Would that be at mongoosepublishing.com?
Two places, mongoosepublishing.com and markosia.publishing.com. That's MARKOSIA.
Oh, and DriveThruRPG.
Yes, that's right. So, and stuff from both Mongoose Publishing and Markosia is available on DriveThruRPG and DriveThruComics. The first issue of Traveller was #1 on DriveThruComics for something like 2 months or something like that.
Oh, right. I forgot they have DriveThruFiction, DriveThruCards, and DriveThruComics as well.
Yeah, we were that, and I credit Markosia for being a quality producer of content, and the beautiful cover art that was done by Mauro Sorgenti. And now we've got let's see, we've got different artists doing the covers now, but the covers are always, in my opinion, stunning work that could accentuate any Traveller campaign. The first issue of Riftbreaker has you can see it on my Threads account. There's go check out Christopher Griffen's Threads account and you'll see the cover. It's got a scout ship on it that looks like it has had better days. And I love it. In fact, I love it so much. I'm looking at it right now because I had a 16x20 print of it created, and I framed it, put it on my wall.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. Cool, man. I like all those bonus things and the little extras that you give out and stuff like that. It's all great ideas. And those art things, everybody has I guess an image of how they think a ship looks like in their head, but to see it kind of spelled out for you also inspires your imagination.
It's good I think a lot of the game that we all play, a lot of it's in the theater of the mind, right? But which is really cool, because when you think about it, every player in your group is imagining things slightly differently, and all of their stories are valid.
Right.
And yet somehow we all come together and we're all in the same story, even though in our heads the movie looks a little different. So, but it's still fun to have something like the comic take those concepts of the game and
give us all a common point of reference.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, in the second issue of Riftbreaker, I had a lot of fun with that, because there's a scene where they go into sort of an archive, and it is filled with Easter eggs for old time Traveller fans, stuff that's lying around in the archive. And I hope people have fun with that as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, it seems we've come to the end of our little interview. Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This is, I don't know, third or fourth year I've done it with you, and every time it's a little different and super fun to do. So I hope you keep having me back. And next year I'll have a lot to talk about with a completed Singularity campaign, and I'll be able to say all kinds of things about the other campaign I'm writing.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thank you so much for being our guest. I appreciate you supporting this little event, and yes, all the best to you and to your future projects.
To you as well, Frank. Thank you so much for everything you do for the game. This Mayday promotion is really cool, and you've made it an integral part of Traveller fandom, and I'm just really excited for you for the success you've had at it. So thanks for doing it.
Oh, thanks for your kind words. And thank you, dear listeners. Until next time, happy traveling. Don't fly solo through the galaxy. Click like to join our alliance. Subscribe for your crew pass, and enable notifications to never miss an encounter. This journey is fueled by my patrons. Thank you, patrons. Feel the thrill of discovery. Become a patron and join the adventure.